Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Battle Brothers Season 3. As today, we've already found fault with the Grand Diviner. The Ejirok has been rolled, but now it's the Season of the Witch. Technically our 5th Legendary Challenge, assuming of course that you count the warm-up fights for the first two, the Abandoned Village and the Icy Cave. I've never actually done this one before, but, obviously just given the name, we can probably assume there will be hex involved. And to that end, I have made some tentative preparations. I considered going full cheese, but ultimately decided against it. As effective as it can be to equip half your guys with a bunch of wooden sticks. It feels kind of silly. It feels like it goes against the idea of what the encounter should probably be about. Thus, we go in as we are. For better or worse, we'll treat this with the respect due, even if it does potentially cost us a better raider or two. I mean, what can I say? That probably makes for better viewing and certainly makes for a better story. But, we'll see how things go. And thus the raiders returned to the Spider Wood at the enigmatic instructions of the anatomists among them. The squirrely scholars had them set up camp just on the periphery of the strange hut they had glimpsed. The night whiled away. The raiders each taken in turn and prepared for a potential clash with yet more esoteric bullshit. But they had faced hex before. Even if just once or twice, they knew more or less what to expect. And they had Alois, a seasoned witch hunter finally earning his keep. Though even he seemed to have some doubts about what they were about to do. Simply going on intuition, perhaps? Or was he more privy to exactly what the anatomists had in mind? Only time would tell. You pause at the forest clearing. The hut before you stands like a mere crumb. It's so quaint and easily forgotten you wondered how it could survive. But perhaps its total banality and unassuming nature is itself a sort of armor. But you've been around this world long enough to know to trust your instinct. And right now, your instinct is to wait. Soon enough, the hut's door pops open and an elderly woman hobbles out. She immediately waves in your direction. You, and only you. Confused, you ask why just yourself, or more particularly, why would you ever trust her to begin with? She smiles. Because I know what the false king dreams of at night. The mercenaries around you turn about and ask what she said. You put a hand up and tell them to stay their ground while you go have a talk with the mysterious woman. Stay here. I'll be right back. You come in with your sword drawn just to find the woman offering you a bowl of stew. She suggests it's only rabbit and potatoes, and more the former than the latter. Sheathing your sword, you take the bowl and have a seat at a table with her opposite you. A couple of candles burn nearby, and there were glyphs painted on the walls in white, and similar shapes hang from the ceiling as dream catchers. The woman puts her elbows on the table. There are trinkets wound into her hair, clips of bird bones and feathers. She carries a weathered face, though her eyes are starkly young, like pearls glimmering from the depths of a swamp. I knew you would come in, the phantom of a friend, like a moth to the flame, seeking truth which cannot be tamed. Pushing the bowl back across the table, you ask if she is a witch. She nods affirmatively and stares at you before nodding again. Good, you haven't killed me, which means you're thinking now. I am indeed a so-called witch, but I am alone, entirely alone, and hounded by the others. You might call them my sisters, but these others know who you are, just as I do, and they want your blood. They can smell it, and that is why I want to talk. I'm listening. The woman draws a long object wrapped in tablecloth and sets it on the table. She throws back its linens to reveal a jagged obsidian blade with a leather strip for a grip. Cut your flesh and bleed upon the black. The hexen and their lowly craft shall come, and then you shall kill them all. After that, we can talk. Sellsword and witch, witch and sellsword. You ask what is in it for you. The witch cackles. Oh, sellsword, you are not in the business of allegiance, but in the business of gold. And with a clever turn of coin, you no friend can turn to foe. But I offer something more. A truth which cannot be seen. A truth for the false king. I mean, we've already come this far. Might as well see it through. The black blade rests in your hand, and your reflection rests jaggedly in its stony grooves, stretched and pulled into every divot and edge. 'Tis a simple stone, a simple dagger. That is all. Not the least bit heavy, but you can feel the import, like dust tossed onto a grave. There is not so much weight in the sand as there is in the throw itself. This blade is either loss or gain, and there's only one way to see to which. The witch nods. You nod back and slash your upper arm. The blood pools onto the stone, and your reflections disappear beneath the crimson. Almost growling, the witch eagerly leans in and presses the blade against the skin. More! More, sellsword! More! You slash again and flex. A spurt hits the stone. She takes the knife and slaps a spotless cloth onto the wound. Well enough, sellsword. Go to your men and prepare. You stand and look at the woman. You ask, and once I kill your enemies, then we talk again? She smiles. In so many words, yes. Oh, well, that is certainly reassuring. All right, well, I'll go kill a bunch of witches and then see if I maybe have to kill one more. You step outside and inform the company that hostiles are coming. Soon enough, the haggard women are spotted walking between the trees of the forest, their long fingernails scratching across the bark and their drooling lips stiveling up to snort and cackle. The first to come through has a long head shaped like a canoe. An infant skull dangles from her necklace, and a leather bag bounces at her hip, 2 rabbit feet sticking out of the pouch. She glares at the hut and sniffs the air, then shifts her eyes upon you. Ah, you have made covenant with that bitch. You nod. The deal's been made, aye, and it will end with you dying on the end of this blade. And I believe she prefers to just be called Witch. Another hex steps forward. And we prefer to call her something else. Kill the sellswords, take the captain alive, but remove his eyes and that lousy tongue. The throng of witches rush forward, some already shifting into licentious-looking younglings, while others revolve their arms in ritual rites. To battle! Ooh, boy. I mean, well, obviously our biggest threat here are going to be the actual hexen themselves, but the unholds do complicate things a bit. As do the webnecked. They're deceptively dangerous in this particular scenario, since they can effectively tie down our most effective fighters. We'll have to be quick to adapt. And thus, the first of the beasts was upon them. The raiders' ranks already split. Men keeping wary distance from each other, even as the beasts bore down. Foam-flecked, feral wolves crashing into their line. And Trip quickly slipping off to one side. Rondel gripped firmly in hand, perhaps in hopes that he might sneak up upon the cursed crones. Behind him, Valen laid down a lethal volley, a pair of javelins jutting from a piteously howling brute's eye sockets, though the beast still yet stood, stubbornly refusing to fall. Drakiith rushed in next, scimitar raised, sight set upon a spider, slicing it open from bow to stern, grotesque organs spilling from its bloated abdomen. And Bowman not far behind, stepping up, but not yet finding an ideal shot. He held his ground. To the south, a blistering blast. And the witches began their casting. What? Mal suddenly turned, his eyes muddy yet fixed intensely on Alois. "We've lost Malafnoi," Rook shouted, and Rax snorted with disgust. "Weak. I'm surrounded by weaklings." A final yelp, and the blinded beast fell, Diego standing poised over its form. "Come on, Rax, we're all on the same side." He growled. "Right. Here, Verlin!" Rook shouted. A nod, a swing of his shield, and Verlin dashed the muddled Malafnoi backward, scissored betwixt the two scholars. The disoriented, disowned noble cursed and slashed, but Alois was already clear. At least, for now. For any number of other monstrosities still descended upon their line. And Arrow finally lining up his shot. Let fly! Slicing through a seductress's sternum, piercing that perfect breast and the lung beneath. The witch wheezed as its lung gave way. And yet the rest of her kin, her peers, were not swayed. To the south, Verlin suddenly turned, eyes set on Alois once more. "What are you doing, witch hunter?" "Oh, for fark's sake." Alois spit beneath his mask. And Rax rushed forward, spying a ragged gap in the line, sight set on the succubi beyond. Even as Random found himself at a bit more of an impasse. Should he, too, try to split off? That's what the captain had said to do, but somehow it seemed wrong to simply leave Alois behind. And so he pressed in instead, practically scalping a wolf. Even as other abominations moved to intercept the raider rush. Bowman menaced, albeit only by a bloodied beast. A separate spider exsanguinating even as it surged forth. And Trip found himself miraculously unengaged. Sprinting forward, a whirl of his net. The nearby unhold, briefly held. Val repositioned, putting a spike between a wolf's ribs. And still finding himself menaced, Alois quickly stowed his gun, whipping out a palisade in a double-fisted grip. Body braced behind, ready to receive his erstwhile allies' attacks. And the gurgling laughter of a lung-shot witch wafted on the wind. The raiders not yet beat, but their advance certainly stalled. Oh man, guys, you are going to have to land more hits if we are going to actually survive this. The thunderous footsteps of an unhold approached on south. Random briefly glancing in its direction. Fur, I don't know what's gotten into you, but it would sure be great if you'd come to your senses about now. Alas, no response from the enchanted academic, though beside him, Malafnoy shook his head groggily. Rax pulled back. A whack of his axe, a crescent of steel, ribs cleaved and bodies bloodied, but none yet felled. The most fearsome of the brutish Noxerer towering over him. A grasping, knobbly-knuckled claw reaching forward. A decisive strike from Setris. Mal driven back, even as he was still recovering his wits. Confused, perhaps, but ultimately unharmed. I think we can live with that. Though Arrow still finding himself menaced. When full scorched earth, a furred fiend set fully ablaze. Arrow calmly switching back to his bow after. And yet more poured forth. A seemingly endless armada of all the worst things this world had to offer. Valen's last two spikes went out. A beast impaled through leg and lung. Trip found himself trolled, but made use of his superior agility. Staying one step ahead. Ceaselessly stabbing at the beast. And Rex was removed from the equation. A grasping claw, an obscene gulp. And the rampaging warrior vanished from view. Arrow took aim. And let fly. Gouging through a seductress's side. The illusion of beauty undone as the crone cartwheeled to the ground. A third shot, this time through the lung-shot lurker's throat. And thus emboldened, the raiders pushed forward. A wolf's head sent flying. Random stepping up onto a rise, holding the southern unhold at bay. Trip ducked and weaved, keeping the northern unhold busy. Giving Setris time to free up their northern flank. Though the one on south wasn't so easily deterred. Random sent flying. Verlin barely shaking off his stupor in time to raise his shield. Oh, sorry, that was Alois. I'm not used to him having a shield. But Verlin did swiftly take his place. Thrusting the gunner into probably even more perilous position, but one where he at least wasn't about to be crushed into paste. But never one to panic. Alois calmly switched back off to his cannon. Another blast, ripping the limb from a lunging lycanthrope. The rest still scrabbling and clattering at the raider line. Another toss from Val. And this time, a hatchet, buried half deep in a giant spider's side. Trip continued, distracting the northern unhold. The Noxerer turning their eyes towards tempting treats scattered across the terrain. Diego dashed forward, eyes set on the remaining witches. And Drakiith slowly found himself overwhelmed. Malkurston swung, making up for lost time as he felled two mangy mutts. Random cracking, the southern unhold crossed the skull. A fetid cloud of foul vapors washing over its fearsome form. Cetrus suddenly wheeled back, cracking, arrow across the head. Its beastly helm thankfully taking the brunt of it. And the southern unhold continued surging through the raider line. Verlin sent flying this time. Alois once again assailed. A virulent cloud of vapors blocking Verlin's return. And thus he circled wide, turning aside a fearsome fist as he once again flanked his Fomorian foe. Arrow took aim. An open shot, but some inherent instinct held his hand. Some sinister spark of sorcery betwixt him and the buxom beauty before his bow. His aim angled lower. An arachnid impaled. Noxerer nicked. A gruesome feast. Another hungry horror approached. Val shouted, his words lost amidst the clamor of combat. His net less so, Cetrus festooned. The bewitched brother briefly bound. And thus perhaps buying the raiders time to make their final approach. Diego dashing in, though his spear failed to find its mark. This one! Kill this one! Rook called, piercing the closest Noxerer with his pike. Its belly bulged, curved horns and spikes pushing through rubbery skin, like it had swallowed an oversized burr. Diego stumbled, suddenly ensorcelled. The merchant turned mercenary's mind misled. But the rest of the raiders fought on. Bit by bit, they were winning this battle. The Coven's creatures finally running thin. A point proven as the nastiest Noxerer burst. Arrow starting the job, but Rax tearing the rest of the way out of its engorged gullet. Verlin and Trip continued keeping the unhold at bay. Alois doing a pretty good job with that shield, too. You know, obviously I'd rather have him on offense, but he is still fulfilling a role. Val scanned the field. An axe hurled, clipping a spider's skull. Rook menaced by Mal once more. He held his ground. Yes, okay. That one! Get that one! Rook suddenly shouted, pointing with his pike at the closer of the two temptresses. Working on it, Drakiith rasped. But his breath ran short. Limbs heavy, exhaustion finally taking its toll. Rax grunted and surged forward. He buried his axe into a second Noxera's side instead. Guts and goop gushing from the jagged gash. Another carefully placed kill shot, this time straight through the caster's kidney. She still yet stood, but certainly not for much longer. The Unholds continued their ill-tempered tantrums, failing to find purchase, though Alois slipped away in the tumult. Setris squashing the final spider, despite still being entangled. And Rook led the rest of the raiders in their final rush. Even Alois getting in on it. Cannon once again brought to bear. And yet the danger still grows. Balin cuts the caster's last gasp short. And Rax once again removed from the field. A second hungry beast, painfully choking his spiked form down its throat. Alois, swiftly peppering its form with shrapnel for its trouble. Rook rending it the rest of the way asunder. And Rax roams once more, albeit understandably irritated by how this fight has gone, at least for him in particular. But hey, at least the rest of the Raiders finally got a chance to shine. It's funny because I actually did give Rax the mind control resistance necklace. You know, with the idea being that he would surge forward and just kind of tear through the witches once he punched through their line. But nope, didn't really work out that way. But, you know, I do still think it more or less worked out overall. Since, yes, at this point I think we've pretty much won. Diego's about to recover. At that point, she's got nothing stopping us from swarming. Yeah, Trip got tied down a lot faster than I had hoped too, but he's done a bang-up job of keeping that thing entirely occupied. And Diego's back. A dash of his spear, not enough to strike a mortal wound, but certainly enough to put the witch on warning. Alois locks and loads, setting his sights even as Setris is swallowed whole, net and all. Val cracks the Noxera across the nose. Oof. And again, exhaustion begins to take its toll. With Diego once again disoriented, slightly slowing things down, but that's fine. That gives us more time to finish off the rest of the witch's followers. Though we do need to actually stop and give our guys a chance to catch their breath. I keep overextending, you know, taking that one last swing, hoping we'll land the final hit. But it's obviously not working out that way, so I mean, at this point, we're just better off playing the slightly slower game, reducing our fatigue before the final sprint. Light clip on Rook, but no actual harm done. And Rax runs in. Six-eyed helm set upon the sole remaining seductress. Alois flaying the final flesh-hungry fiend. A crack of stone on skull. The first of the two unhold finally teeters. Verlin reluctantly stepping forth into a cloud of gas, breaking the brute's will. And Rook finally putting it down. Yeah, we've won this. Though it was a hard-fought battle, honestly, I'm glad we came in without the cheese. This really does make it feel more earned, you know? No offense, of course, to the folks who prefer the cheese, because, of course, that is an entirely valid tactic. It's one of the most common ways for folks to deal with Hexen. I just really felt like it made for a weaker story, and that is one of the main things I do try to keep in mind when I plan out our moves in this kind of campaign. And thus, the bloody battle finally wound its way towards its end. The one remaining witch, stumbling away, slipping and tripping through the gore-sodden grass. Now, Alois grunted. A click of the trigger, a gout of flame. The final ghoul all but disintegrated, the witch, trying to cower behind it, practically gutted. And the raiders converged. Rook ran the last true threat through, then gestured, directing the rest of the raiders towards the one remaining bit of colossal cleanup. "Oh, you're finally coming to help," Trip shouted, gasping slightly for breath. No, it's fine. I got him on the ropes. Just, a few more stabs. Oh, hey, Rax. Out of my way, the surly sellsword scowled. And no longer beholden or bewitched, the Unhold simply tried to make its exit. Or perhaps it simply lashed out in mindless rage. It was always hard to tell with these things. But of course, the raiders were not about to simply let it go. Bewitched or not, the beast was simply too dangerous to allow to roam. Rax finally getting in a lick of his own crescent axe, carving deep, cutting down to bone. Whilst other raiders hung back, finally given a moment to catch their breath. Alois simply surveying the battlefield, moving from corpse to corpse, pushing his dagger through temples and into brains. And then, finally, with one last swing, the fight was done. The raiders themselves bruised, beaten, bloodied, and breathless, but they still yet lived. Alois in particular having taken good lessons from this fight. This, perhaps his most penultimate victory, even if his direct contributions were somewhat tame, but group effort, etc. Hey, and finally got that potion of malevolence back. Rest in peace, Annie. Along with a bevy of other trophies and treasures. Might actually finally have enough to make a hag necklace. I'll have to double check the ingredients on that. I would say I'm disappointed in the lack of legendaries, but we're not quite done here just yet. The last of the witches is slain, and you have their corpses mutilated for good measure. Ears, lips, noses, toes, all of them cut off. Their bags are emptied out and the items crushed into powder and covered in dust. Fleshy bits or animal parts are dumped into a pile and promptly burned. As the fire rises, the Hexen from the hut seemingly appears out of nowhere and takes you by the arm. Your men draw their swords, but you hold your hand up. You tell them to keep salting the earth, so to speak. And as you enter the hut, you take a look back to see a few of the men pissing on the embers of the fire. Inside the hut, you sit where you had before. On the table, you find something rolled up in a handkerchief, and the witch points its corner and rolls it between her finger and thumb. She looks up and tips her chin forward, and turns her hands, palms up. You said you talked, so talk. Who are you? The witch smiles. An old hag in a forest hut. Everything else is hearsay. You stare at her long enough to see there's little fruit to bear in chasing this question further. Okay, fair enough. But you seem to know who I am. How? She stares at the wrapped item. I don't even know your name, sellsword, and I haven't the slightest inclination to begin to care. It is not a matter of who you are, but what you are. She turns her hands as though they were following a tune. The blood of the ancients resides within you. It resides within us all. But you in particular, well. Her nose crinkles as she snorts, and she exhales. She grins madly. It is ever so there, and if I can smell it, then the whole world can smell it. The ancients? What, those walking skeletons? What do they have to do with anything? She taps the handkerchief and whatever is beneath wraps the table. She answers. The ancients were men before our time. Truly, truly before our time. Imagine a kingdom. Now imagine a kingdom that ruled kingdoms. An empire. That's correct. Now imagine an empire that ruled empires. Unfathomable power such as that leaves the world with great vengeance, and will spend its dying days ruining those which have ruined it. You ask if the empire is dead. The witch smiles. I suspect not, but I do not truly know. What about Davkol, the old god? I've heard his name a time or two, mostly from my drill sergeant, but still, is he caught up in all this somehow? Shrugging and leaning back, the Hexen asks you to repeat the name. Davkol. She shakes her head. I have heard nothing about this Davkol. A supposed god, you say? Well, he has not spoken to me. You stare at her and try to pry a hidden truth from her eyes, but she seems earnest in her response, and you change the subject. Okay, well, what about the greenskins, the orcs and goblins? At times, they almost seem like men themselves. Are they somehow related to all this? Twisted parodies of the ancient empire, perhaps? Some remnant of a long-forgotten war? The Hexen cackles. I wish! Have you seen what orcs got between their legs? Wouldn't mind a ride on that if I knew it wouldn't tear me in half and fark one end while wearing the other for a glove. You raise an eyebrow and nod as though to say, of course. Okay, well, I feel like we might be getting a bit off track here. We were talking about the false king, I think. I'm trying to kind of loop everything back into that. For the first time, there's a crack in the witch's facade. She purses her lips. When did I call you that? You point to the door and then to the table. You answer. I walked in here and you said I'd seek the truth. That you know what the false king dreams of. The Hexen taps the handkerchief rather mindlessly. She looks up. Then you have my apologies, sellsword. I remember no such thing. I am but a fragile and old woman, older than I look. And I'm not being cheeky about that. You press her on the matter, but she only stonewalls you further. And my dreams, what about those? The Hexen leans forward. She puts her hands to your face, and you feel the leathery fingers press deep into your cheeks, like a half-dozen walnuts. They rub the corners of your eyes and tap your temples. All the while she is smiling, and then she pulls back. You go to the noblemen and the rich, and they pay you gold, and in return you risk life and limb, and you slaughter and murder and kill all that you can. And there you are, day after day, wondering if that's all you are good for. And afterward the highborn shut the door on you and your deeds, and you hear them inside having a grand time, music playing, womenfolk laughing, jesters joking. The festivities are riotous, and you are outside with a bag of gold in hand and its blood-slaked receipt. And you go down to the pub and buy yourself some company and tip a coin to the minstrel for a song. And you can taste a fine wine in even the cheapest of cellars. But there is no escape from that horrible feeling in the back of your head. That feeling you were born into fever, and all this violence and death is not a means to an end, but the end itself. It is what you are, and what you always will be. She pauses, sighs, continues. Sellsword, the power of a lie is only equaled by one's desire to believe in it. You live a powerful lie, and such power will not go easily. I beg of you, be only what you can understand. It was not yourself or your weaponry or the presence of your company whole which brought her fear, but only the dawning of some unknown realization as she speaks to you now. You're afraid. Why? Who am I? You stand up, yelling at the woman for answers. She slaps you in the face and you stiffen and falter back a step. A drop of blood slips down your cheek and you catch it in your cuff. The witch grabs the handkerchief and throws it off, revealing the obsidian blade beneath. It is sharper than you remember. A vivid sliver of yourself running down the edge as though you cracked a door toward a mirror. The Hexen sits back down and pushes the weapon across the table. No more questions, sellsword. There's only so much I know, and so much you need to know. We've made a deal, and this is the end of it. Taking the dagger, you ask what she did to it, but she refuses to answer. You then ask if there are more out there like her. She grins playfully. I pray there are not. Obsidian dagger, which honestly given the context is almost certainly a sliver from the obsidian monolith. Just over yonder. Which, metatextually, I know is the final resting place for the Emperor himself. Us in a former life, it would seem. Okay, I guess our business is done. Might be in your best interest to make sure we don't cross paths again. You bid the witch adieu, and she says nothing more. Outside, the men ask what she said, while others make reference to sexual escapades. You think you're smirking, but you really don't know. The conversation has left you in a fog, and from within the mist. You only depend upon what you know. Ordering the company back on the road. It's time to go. Interesting. Wow, yeah, I was not expecting that much lore. A bit weird that they kind of threw in some red herrings there, the stuff with Davkol, the orcs. But still very, very fascinating, since I do feel like the central plot of the game, as lucid as it might be, does largely seem to center around the fate of the fallen empire. Obsidian Dagger. A hermit witch gave you this stone dagger after tempering it with your blood. Reflections in its glass seem to move on their own, but this is clearly a trick of the eye. Very curiously, however, blood never seems to dry if it rests upon the obsidian. Resurrects any human it kills as a Wiederganger who fights for you. I mean, of somewhat questionable use considering that humans are the weakest foes we tend to face, but yeah, okay. I could see us having some potential fun with that. Here you go, Trip. Your reward for soloing that troll as long as you did. Have fun with it. I'm sure there will be no unforeseen repercussions. Right, guys? Rax? Random? That said, I do hate to end an episode after just one fight, but this was a pretty chunky one. And I do need to reconfigure our loadouts and such. You know, get our battle lines reset, pull the wounded, swap in fresh, etc. And of course, figure out our next move. I mean, I guess from here, we're really probably just whiling our time until the second crisis event, which will hopefully be Ancient Undead. Oh, also, let's go ahead and do up Alois real quick. Alois hit soft cap. He is following in the footsteps of Mark Giemza, which means bags and belts. Which I do think is a good get, because that shield really did work out for us. And this will give him more room for some extra toys. And then as far as stats go, pretty straightforward. We'll take the +5, we'll take the other +5. Though, for our third, I am somewhat less certain. I am tempted to even out that fatigue. I mean, we don't technically really need it. But I do think I would feel better if we evened it out at 80, and then we'd probably just left it there. But he does also need more defense. Alright, I'll tell you what, we'll take the fatigue. Just because it's a bigger number. And then every legacy level from here on out will go into both defenses. And with that, I think we're done, at least for today. Good work, Raiders. I honestly thought at least one of you would die. It is a minor miracle that you didn't. We had some very distinct weak links in our line. Cetrus, Diego, and Random in particular. They were the characters that I kind of had to make do with because we simply didn't have enough characters with 60+. But thankfully, the Hexen seemed to largely focus on characters who were a little more resistant. Though Cetrus and Mal did get hammered pretty hard. Diego too, though they mostly kept him on guard duty, which, you know, makes sense, given who he is. So yep, we'll hit the pause button for now. I will take care of the usual off-screen bookkeeping, get our guys prepped for whatever comes next, and we will pick up here next time. As I believe we were trying to ally with the Noble House. We'll get back to doing that. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Arrow Bowman, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.